Today's talk is titled Seniors to Seniors, Unveiling Truths and Aspirations with a Teacher's Reflection, to be delivered by Treva Boyce, who, as most of you know, is my older daughter. I was asked to write a bio for her from a mom's perspective. So for our visitors, this isn't a normal bio. We don't introduce speakers this way typically. So anyway, here is my mom's photo essay biography of Treva. Treva was born just over 50 years ago with a full head of hair and huge brown eyes. It's a good job she was so cute and cooperative, as I was a novice mom who had no experience whatsoever with baby humans, or babies of any kind for that matter. Treva spent her childhood moving between cities and countries with her young family. She spent time in England, where she mastered the art of coordinated outfits. Upon returning to California, she was enrolled in 5 different grade and middle schools in the San Fernando Valley as her family continued their gypsy ways. Treva was a latchkey kid during these years. She spent many happy afternoons slinging lemons from our tree into the neighbor's pool, pedaling her Stingray bike up to Ventura Boulevard to indulge in Rite Aid ice cream cones, and generally running wild with the other feral children in the neighborhood. The family eventually relocated to San Juan Capistrano, where she attended Dana Hills High School. She experimented with different hairstyles and gravitated towards the Gothic crowd. This is her prom photo. Oh, and well, let me explain. And the last time she ever let me tell her that something was a once-in-a-lifetime must-do experience. Treva graduated from San Francisco State University with a BA in English, after which she was accepted into Humboldt State University's teacher credential program. Northern California was her happy place, and she stayed in the area after graduating, working with her mentor teacher amongst a variety of other jobs, including driving heavy equipment for the city of Eureka. This is Treva, heading out for her first day as a full-time and fully credentialed classroom teacher. She continued to work as both a middle and high school English teacher at campuses in Laytonville, Gilroy, and eventually SLO County. Currently, she teaches high school English for seniors and co-teaches freshman English and social studies at Central Coast New Tech in Nipomo. Treva loves Monty Python and silly English humor, is fully bipedal, and loves both cats and dogs. She's also an avid horseback rider. And I have to show this one too. She often travels with our backpacking group on our summer outings and helps celebrate our return to civilization by joining our celebratory post-hike harem dances, which we do pretty frequently. This summer, Treva officiated at her younger sister's wedding in Mill Valley and brought both laughter and love into the ceremony. In addition to being a dedicated teacher, she is a good sport with a great sense of humor and has a very proud mama. Treva.
Good morning. So I'm going to start by telling you that this didn't quite go the direction I was hoping it to. So yeah, I'm a teacher. Things go all different directions. When Randy asked if I'd be willing to present the first Sunday of the new year, I was hesitant at first. All the previous sermons that I've presented were my ideas, the results of sudden inspiration. So my first presentation, I believe it was The Masks We Wear, came about from my love of Joseph Campbell and mythology. My second sermon was inspired when Stephen Lloyd Moffat spoke to us about wine. And for some reason, when I sat in that corner, I had this burning inspiration to learn about bread and the history and cultural relevance of bread. It was absolutely, I loved that one. I wanted to give a sermon on education and found myself stuck halfway through. And then the Parkland shooting happened, and the second half of my sermon wrote itself. But this today was not my idea. I asked Randy for inspiration. What do people normally speak to in the year's first service? And he told me the first service usually had something to do with hope and looking into the new year. I believe my response to Randy was something along the lines of, okay. And the response in my head was, oh, crap. At that point in time, it was shortly after the national election, and I was eyeball deep in looking at freshman CERs, so claim, evidence, and reasoning paragraphs, and then also my senior PIQs, those personal insight questions. Some of them will be submitting with their college applications. I was overwhelmed at that point, not feeling a lot of hope, sorry, Randy, drowning in student papers. So, as I've always done with tasks like this, or writing task, I thought about it for a little bit and then tucked it away into my subconscious. My hopes for a career in education had been initially dampened when I went through the teaching credential program at Humboldt State in 1999. Our professors made sure to inform us that at that point, education was significantly changing and it was going to get worse before it got better. The late 90s were the beginning of the California state standards, which radically changed what public education looked like, marking the beginning of high stakes, big money standardized tests. The hope was that these, according to the Department of Ed, quote, world-class academic standards and statewide system of accountability would significantly improve student achievement. Now, as a 20-year veteran, I find myself wondering if I will still be teaching when education has no choice but to change. I, along with many of my colleagues, hoped that COVID and distance learning were, the print is small. I, along with many of my colleagues, had hoped that with COVID and distance learning, we had the opportunity to rethink what education would look like. For the first time in decades, hybrid schedules provided an incredible opportunity to change. That year, Fridays were teacher office hours. We were to be available virtually all day for our students, which also enabled us to not only keep up with our workload, but also to collaborate with colleagues, plan and refine projects. It enabled us to have a lunch in which we didn't have to answer final student questions, hoof it to the restroom and back, and then inhale our food while setting up for the next class, all within 30 minutes. We hoped that our success during the hybrid learning period would be a catalyst for change, but no. The recent rise of AI has played havoc on education, with college professors struggling to identify student versus AI written papers. Although I initially balked at the idea of AI, feeling crushed by the implications of students relying on it and the potentially countless hours I would spend unknowingly assessing AI papers. But I have since reconsidered. AI should be the catalyst for change. It's not going anywhere. It's only going to get more savvy with time. I have since wholeheartedly embraced AI, specifically ChatGPT. I'm learning how to use it effectively as a tool to brainstorm, get feedback, discuss ideas, and develop plans for future projects. I am hopeful that AI, in addition to increasing automation, will leave us no choice but to innovate. With knowledge at everyone's fingertips, hopefully the focus will become more skills-based as opposed to knowledge-based. Otherwise, as far as public education goes, after 13 years in a traditional classroom, I found myself burnt out. Public education had been challenging for a variety of reasons beyond the establishment of the state standards, including meeting the demands of a very large, very diverse group of students with varying skill levels, following IEP and 504 accommodations for identified students, juggling the endless emails, forms requested from counselors, meetings, and the rapidly increasing and open disrespect for teachers and public education. Add to that working with large groups of opinionated and sometimes very stroppy, dismissive teenagers. And I was not seeing how I was going to make it another 17 years. However, in 2018, I began to find new hope when I accepted my job at Central Coast New Tech. It is unlike traditional schools I've worked at before. New Tech is project-based. It is fundamentally different. Our students work collaboratively to solve real-world problems and present their learnings to peers, family, and community members. Projects are engaging and meaningful, not only enabling the students to access content in different ways, but providing opportunities to use student feedback and use that student feedback to improve projects. This practice, combined with a school and staff culture, has rejuvenated my passion for discussion and research in working to create and present scaffolded projects for student success. However, with my principal retiring at the end of the school year, there's a lot of uncertainty and fear on campus. Those of us who have worked at other schools are well aware of the impact a principal has on a school's culture. In my career, I've only worked for 3 good principals who listened to and supported staff, aware of the importance of school culture. And my current principal, Sarah Butler, is by far and wide the best of those 3. I've had my fair share of poor to bad principals who led to 2/3 of our staff leaving site. I had a principal who harassed me because she felt that I was obviously lesbian and I hadn't come out to myself yet. So with experiences like that, you can hopefully understand why Sarah's departure is so distressing to many of us. We know how devastating a bad principal can be on school culture. The daily 120-mile drive is worth it for the total school community, my colleagues' supportive and collaborative culture, and a student culture that is supportive and inclusive. My hope is that Troy Dotinga, a teacher who left us a while ago, will actually return as principal as he knows our culture. So as far as this new year goes, I am more pensive than I am hopeful. And with an incoming administration that is openly hostile towards the Department of Education, threatening to shut it down, I can only hope that Newsom will shield California from some of it. But my seniors, they're looking at the potential of their future. At 50, I know my future is very finite. As the youngest member of this church, and as the youngest of most of my friends, I am well aware of the loss I'm going to be experiencing in my future. Joel was a reminder of this. I find that I have more pervasive aches and pains. I have very few days that are pain-free anymore. I've discovered that an old skate injury will occasionally hobble me, as well as the sciatica I'm developing down my right leg, which really hurts right now, but I'm good. I was gonna say it intermittently acts up and makes me squeak, so if I squeak today, you know what's going on. It's been a long time since I've gotten a solid night's sleep. I don't remember the last time I woke up and felt refreshed. I'm constantly drained and exhausted, with depression lurking in the background. I'm finding that I'm less focused, and sometimes language evades me. I'll be in the middle of saying something in class, and I'll just forget what I was talking about and lose that thought. And I'm guessing most of you, if not all of you, know exactly what I'm talking about. Overall, compared to other times in my life and taking all this into consideration, I find I have less hope. And then it hit me. My subconscious consideration spawned a fledgling idea. I knew what I wanted to talk about. My seniors to my seniors. So stick with me as I develop my idea. I've taught seniors before at Gilroy Early College Academy. GECA was another small school, public school on the grounds of the local community college. Students who attended had to pass classes to be eligible for college courses, which after their sophomore year became the bulk of their classes. If they couldn't toe the line, they were dropped and sent back to the regular high school. Additionally, we had no behavior issues because on a community college campus, there was zero tolerance for that. The small school allowed for stronger student-teacher connections. I enjoyed the position and still follow many of my students on Facebook, witnessing their families grow, and I can't believe they have children, but okay. It is through them that I have hope for the future, and that they will make the future a better place for their children. In many ways, CCNTH is very similar to GECA. It's a small school with an inclusive school culture and high expectations. Students also complete dual enrollment or community college courses, some earning their associates at the same time that they earn their high school diploma. The big difference between my experiences at these two schools is that at CCNTH, I teach both the freshmen and the seniors, bookending their high school experience. This means that I get to know them fresh out of middle school, so basically they're big 8th graders. Then 3 years later, I get to know them as young adults, witnessing firsthand their growth. And it's just, I didn't think I wanted to teach seniors, and now I just absolutely love it because seeing that growth is incredible. I won't lie, I don't like the workload. As I said, I'm less focused and I have significantly less energy. So slogging through almost 50 student PIQs, each of them minimum of 1,000 words, some well over 1,000 words, is the most predictably challenging part of my fall semester. However, I don't teach for the workload, I teach for my kids. But assessing my seniors' PIQs and thinking about the sermon, I suddenly realized that I was eyeball deep in hope. Personal insight questions are an opportunity for colleges to gain a more holistic view and understanding of a candidate's personality, values, experiences, and potential contributions that the candidate could make to the school community. I encourage students to present themselves as fallible, but with a growth mindset, enabling them to take chances and to grow from failure. Colleges don't want to hear about how perfect a student is. They want to know the applicant's story and how they deal with challenges and setbacks. Some colleges even provide students the opportunity to write something creative, to get a glimpse of the student's personality through their response. Like the University of Chicago's prompt, misattribute a quote and explain the implications. Last year, I had a student write an incredibly engaging response detailing the implication of John Wilkes Booth, stating, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." His response, I was waiting for some of you, his response highlighted not only his creativity, but also his passion for history and excellent writing skills. The point is, the writings provide more about a student's character and how they would fit into the school's community. And within those responses is endless hope for the future, even in light of the world we're living in now. Generation Z has a lot going for it and a lot going against it. But when has that been any different? As a Gen Xer, when I was a teenager, the older generation considered mine to be the MTV generation, when MTV actually showed music videos. While divorce rates increased and mothers went to work, many of my generation, including myself, as my mom said, were latchkey kids. We were seen as cynical and slackers. Teenage millennials were commonly perceived as entitled, lazy, and overly reliant on technology. And Gen Z, the media will tell you that Gen Z is tech addicted, entitled, lazy, and lacking social skills. Are we starting to see a trend in how the older generations view the younger generations? When have we had a time when an older generation venerated the younger generation? Anytime someone finds out I teach at high school, the common response is praise for being able to work with that population. The repeated sentiment is, "I don't know how teachers do it today." But I'd like to share with you some of what brings me hope, and it's what makes it worth it. All this came to me in the middle of my PIQs. In responding to a prompt asking about a student's motivation and passion, the student wrote, quote, "I see the effect of our current news industry firsthand. Most of my peers in high school do not trust nor pay attention to the news, and therefore may not be aware of the issues in our world and at the global and local levels. My dream is to be a journalist after college, and seeing my generation not knowing where to turn for a reliable source of information has inspired me to make a change. I want to get my peers interested in what's happening around the world and in our community. So for some reason, it was at that point that I had the epiphany that all the hope I have in the future is through my students. So here's a few more for you. One of my current seniors is from the first freshman class we had after hybrid learning. So he came in when we were finally full-time in person. In one of his PIQ responses this year, he wrote, "When the time came to go to high school, I didn't want to leave the pandemic seeming defeated. A lot had happened, yet I wanted to show the world that I was back. So when back to school shopping came around and I saw a bright Hawaiian shirt and fedora, he got them and wear them daily now to be a beacon for joy and to be the difference." This student, as a freshman, we saw was just so empathetic and so caring. And in fact, that fall, that December, his first year, he received the Dude Be Nice Award on the same day that he brought a bag of candy canes for every student on campus. You know, that's the kind of kid this is. So for obvious reasons, since that day, he's become known as Santa Claus by the students. He is the son of 2 field workers. This young man has made it his mission to make the world a better place through service and to someday take care of his parents, like his parents have taken care of him. Another student, not technically a senior, but he's graduating early, so I'm throwing him in there. He was recently interviewed by KCBX for his social justice efforts. The article titled "Local High School Activist Creates Youth-Led Organization Fighting for Higher Farm Worker Pay" describes his efforts to inform field workers and their children about their rights. This 17-year-old, I think he was 16 when he started, but now 17-year-old created an organization in Santa Maria that provides workshops for Central Coast farm worker families, working to increase field worker pay and rights. He also founded the student-led organization La Cultura del Mundo, which started the Kevin Project, the goal of which is to increase pay and to share the stories of youth impacted by parents working long hours. Additionally, he has spoken publicly against gun violence on the Central Coast. Last year, he received the Firebrand Award in Santa Barbara for his efforts. This student has a clearly defined path, and he is driven to help people. These are just a couple of the amazing students I have the honor of working with, making that 120-mile drive well worth it. Perhaps it has given you a little bit more insight as to why I do that drive. But recently, the week before we went to Christmas break, I discovered something new. That Thursday, a senior who graduated last year returned to my classroom. He strode in wearing cowboy boots. He had this big silver buckle on, the big cowboy hat, and the biggest grin I've seen. He walked up to me, shook my hand, gave me a big hug, and he told me that he returned specifically to see me and to tell me that he was living the dream. "I'm living the dream, Ms. Boyce." Last year, I revealed the alternative path I wish I had taken when I was ready to graduate high school. I lamented about the missed opportunities and regrets, especially with my lifelong love of horses, and my dismay that I never knew about opportunities for seasonal employment working at ranches when I was younger. I mentioned how now, as a 50-year-old, riding is hard on my body, limiting my enjoyment when I do have those rare opportunities to ride. This student heard me. Last summer, he visited a ranch in Wyoming, and the day after he came back to California, they called him and offered him a job. He said he didn't even think about it. He said yes, quit his 2 jobs, and moved out to eastern Wyoming immediately. The grin on his face when he described living in his bunkhouse with a bunch of other guys his age, working with cattle, being thrown by bulls and by broncos. He loved what he was doing, and he credited me. He said it was my words that had inspired him to seize the opportunity when it presented itself. So I've come to realize that my stories about regretting lost opportunities to follow a passion that he and I both shared, horses, had given him hope. that the opportunity to live his passion was out there, that he could live the life he wanted. And there he was in my classroom, grinning from ear to ear, repeating again and again, "I'm living the dream, Miss Boyce, I'm living the dream." This kid is, I love this kid. At that moment, my heart melted. I was so proud of him for taking the chance, seizing the opportunity, and thriving. So I realize now that I do have a lot of hope for the future. Yes, these next few years promise to be extremely challenging in a myriad of ways, but our kids are resilient, and some of them are highly motivated, empathetic individuals driven to make a difference. Before making assumptions about Generation Z, remember the world that they are being handed, because they are well aware of it. They face economic uncertainty with an unstable market and escalating home prices, making ownership almost impossible. There's a significant increase in mental health concerns, many struggling with economic pressures, academic demands, and pervasive social media. Climate change is a real thing. We're seeing the effects in real time. And I don't know if there's been a time when the country has been more politically divided, and the young people are not seeing any candidates that they feel represent them. Considering the challenges they face, perhaps we give them some grace, especially to those who seem a little more apathetic. After all, who of us would be willing to start again in this world? They have no choice. And there's a significant number of them who, in light of all of this, are embracing the challenges they face with the goal of making a difference in the world. Let us remember the resilience and ambition that they bring to the daunting world that they inherit. Their determination to create positive change inspires me daily, even as I grapple with the uncertainties of my own future. Through teaching, I find that hope isn't in grand gestures, but in the persistence of young people daring to follow their dream of making things better. It is in them that I place my faith, and I invite you to do the same. Support them, believe in them, and recognize the seeds of hope they carry for all of us, especially in these uncertain times. Thank you. Yeah.